Storybooks are there to teach your kids to be good. Jonathan Livingston Seagull or Little Riding Hood. But comic books are cooler. Zombie horror, traveling blue boxes, Spike and Buffy Angel if we absolutely must.
Ew.
The name's Samantha Maybe. I'm a Loki-loving Whedon lady.
Don't you call me Sammy or I'll punch you in the face.
Really?
Comic Sans.
Why, hello there! It's time again for me, Samantha Maybe, to tell you a story. A story about a man who owns a strange blue box and travels throughout all of time and space. Doctor Who number 3, The Doctor and the Nurse. Now you may notice something about this issue. It was not written and drawn by Diggle and Buckingham, respectively. Instead, the next few issues are scheduled for Brandon Seifert and Philip Bond. I was a tad bit concerned because I've been enjoying the artwork and the writing, but I think that... never mind. I'll just show you. Dunlop Station, orbiting 70 Virginis B, 2133 AD. The TARDIS appears, and out pops the... Oh God! Do I really look like that? My chin isn't really that large, is it? Well, come on, be honest. Doctor? It's, good to hear from you again. How long have you been eavesdropping on me? Oh, I always watch your Doctor Who videos, Sam. Well, technically, you're watching me film the video. You know that this isn't live, right? Of course it is. If your camera is running and you mention my comics, the feed gets sent directly to the TARDIS. Oh. Well, maybe the writing is better than the art? Shall I continue? Oh yes, please. I do love story time. So the Doctor pops his massive chin out of the TARDIS, simply says, no, and vorps away again. It reappears in London in 1588 AD, and Rory then does the same thing, again on Coruscant, then in feudal Japan, some Valentine's Day planet, what could be ancient Rome, and finally we see Rory and the Doctor in an air bubble on the moon. Time for some exposition. A few hours ago, the Doctor and the Pawns were running for their lives, as usual, and made it safely back to the TARDIS. Once inside, we learn that the people chasing them are called the Siblinghood of St. Augustine Physicist. They are a religious group who believe in no time but the present. Thus, a time traveler is nothing but walking, talking blasphemy. We'll see if I ever save them from the invading forces of Raxacorico Fallopatorius again. The Brotherhood attempts to destroy the TARDIS before they can escape, but the Doctor manages to move the TARDIS anyway. Rory becomes cross with the Doctor, because he took them to a planet where they would almost certainly be in danger. Hang on, Rory looks pretty normal. And so does Amy. Look, normal, screaming Amy. Why is it just the Doctor that looks weird? Oh well, let's just get back to the story and ignore Giant Chin Man. Amy desperately wants the Doctor and Rory to stop fighting and suggests that they spend some quality time together without her. Rory agrees, as long as there's beer. So they trot off to London, England in 1814. They find a pub, and Amy leaves them to the beer and goes to see the sights. After about 5 seconds, the Doctor and Rory decide they will not be able to sit it out until the end of the night, so they head back to the TARDIS to jump ahead a few hours. Rory is against this idea, and he reminds the Doctor of one of the last times they left Amy alone for 36 years in the Two Streams facility. On that particular occasion, the Doctor had jumped too far ahead in time, and what they thought would be a 20-something Amelia Pond was closer to 60 years old. After bringing both Amys into the same timeline, Rory had to choose which wife he would allow to survive, as this paradox could not exist inside the TARDIS. They end up traveling forward in time and find themselves inexplicably in the middle of the London Blitz. Again. The Doctor notices a man who turns out to be Ian Fleming, the creator of James Bond, trapped beneath a bomb. While he saves Fleming's life and allows for the creation of a series of wildly popular spy movies, Amy Pond is now alone in 1814 London. Amy being Amy, she gets a bit bored and decides to just go hang out in the TARDIS. On the way there, she sees a man wearing an eye drive, the same eye patches worn by the agents of the Silence. Intrigued beyond all logical bounds, she decides not to bother the doctor, but to follow the man herself. After safeguarding the future of the 007 franchise, the boys get back to the TARDIS and try to get back to Amy. Instead, they land themselves in the La Brea tar pits, 35,000 years before 1814. As they try to sort out what happened, a saber-toothed tiger jumps through the TARDIS doors and Rory attempts to pacify it with a magazine. The doctor starts fiddling with controls in the hopes that they can get back to Amy. Meanwhile, she follows the agent of the Silence to a brewery, which promptly explodes in a literal flood of beer. So that's the story. Anything you'd like to say for yourself, Doctor? I guess he had some planet saving to do. I feel so used. Anyway, I thought that the writing in this story was brilliant. There were loads of mentions to story points during Season 6, which points to the fact that all of this is happening immediately after Season 6, or sometime mid-Season 7 prior to The Angels Take Manhattan. When do I think all of this is happening? Well, it makes the most sense canonically that this would all be happening mid-Season 7, in my opinion. We were led to believe that the Pawns hadn't seen the Doctor at all after his death before Asylum of the Daleks. I suppose the only way to know for sure would be if someone mentioned those black cubes from the Power of Three. But we may never know when this is all actually happening. Aside from that, though, the Doctor also poked fun at Rory for dying all the time, and that will never not be funny. There was a lot of action and about 10 time jumps, which always keeps things interesting. It's hilarious to see the Doctor and Rory being forced to interact for so long, and they've gotten themselves into a pretty sticky situation in the tar pits. Amy, in the meantime, is following a man who is clearly not dressed for 1814, who she can tell is a member of the Order of the Silence. Why on earth would she think that this is a good idea? Has she forgotten all the pain that the Order has caused her and Rory and Riversong over the course of their lives? I mean, maybe she did, because this is the Silence we're talking about. But no, I think Amy's just being Amy. Beautiful and generally lovely, but occasionally very, very stupid. This issue raised a lot of questions, however, and that can only mean one thing. It's time for a look. So the siblinghood of St. Augustine physicist is interesting, right? They could have been the ones responsible for the TARDIS being wonky. Right before they fly away from that planet, the TARDIS gets zapped with something the Doctor says will destroy it. But what if the siblinghood just crossed a few wires and instead made it impossible for the Doctor to time travel effectively? I guess that's possible. There's also the matter of this familiar pub. The Doctor says he recognizes the pub he and Rory are supposed to spend their bro time in, though he can't remember why. Later, he remembers why it looked familiar and becomes rather concerned. Again, this could potentially have something to do with the siblinghood. Maybe they jammed up the time circuits and made sure that the Doctor traveled to a time and place where they could find him. Of course, that doesn't really jive with their whole philosophy, because then they're utilizing the Doctor's time travel to their advantage. Or maybe this has nothing to do with the siblinghood at all, and the time circuits aren't wonky until after they visit 1814 London. We don't really know if that's where the Doctor was intending to go, but we don't get any indications otherwise either. Instead of the siblinghood, it could also be the Silence. Maybe it's an outpost of theirs, and the Doctor remembers visiting it in the days before his death in Season 6. The Order obviously has some dealings in the town, so we'll just have to wait and find out. As soon as the new issue comes in, I will read it, and then I'll tweet about it, and then I'll review it. I'm Samantha Maybe, and I'll see you then.